Hey everybody, welcome back to Twisted Willow. Today we are starting off by feeding our Kuni piglets some bananas, and they are really enjoying these. But I started making this video today to talk about the ground on my property, and this is it. When we first moved here, just about 2 years ago, most of the ground was this ratty, weedy, dead ground. And it has been quite a process to try to rehabilitate it. So out in the pasture, this is where the chickens have been, and you can see that there is some grass popping up. There's some weeds in there too, but there is some grass. 2 years ago, there was no grass growing here. It was all weeds. So this is great progress. But what's interesting is this little square here is where I had my chicken tractor parked. And just before we butchered our meat birds, they were in the chicken tractor in this spot for a couple of days before we butchered them. And the difference is just remarkable. There's definitely still some weeds in this area too, but it's lush, it's green. We definitely have some grass growing in there. So I'm super optimistic that the more chickens that we can pasture out here, the better our land is going to be. We moved our chicken tractor with our meat birds in it once or twice a day, sometimes a little bit more if it was really bad ground that they were on. And that was great, and I know that it's helped a lot of things, but the chickens having a couple days on one spot is clearly so good for the ground. They've done so much for this ground. So it's really inspired me to do things a little bit different this year with my meat birds. So we're still going to use the chicken tractor, but more of a mobile coop. So I've invested in some poultry netting, and we're going to be giving them some larger areas and having them on those areas longer. And I'm hoping that we're going to see more of these type of results. This is the chicken tractor that we made last year, all out of recycled materials that we just had on hand. And we do a lot of like little toggle doors. It's really easy to put a door or a gate on something without having to invest in the extra hardware, which can be expensive. So we just went with a simple A-frame. We put this shelf in it, which I'm not too happy with. I think I'm going to do some bars across, some little roosting bars for them. That way we don't have that little mess to have to clean up. But it worked really well, and we just put a tarp over top of it, and that sheltered them from the elements and kept them nice and cozy at night. So it was a great little shelter. It is a little bit hard to move, which I've heard about these A-frame style tractors. So having to move them less because the chickens will have the poultry netting to go out and pasture around this, I think is going to be much, much easier for us this year. And this is a little bit further out in the pasture, so you can see some of the weedy bits. There was absolutely no grass growing here. This is where our irrigation line, we had some irrigation put in last year. But initially there was not even a blade of grass growing here when we first moved here in this area. So you can see that year over year we are getting quite a bit more. So what I've been doing is, you can see the black spots here is where we've had the really bad weed patches. I've actually gone and done a controlled burn of those weeds. And then during the summer, I just keep them really well mowed. And that seems to be working because we're getting more and more grass and less weeds. And of course, the chickens and the pigs having access to this area. This year, the pigs aren't going to have quite as much access, but the chickens have just done such an amazing job at rehabilitating this land. As you can see, there's just more and more grass coming up. It's a lot of grass, considerably more than what we got last year. And this is our gate to where we winter the pigs. And when we first moved here, this gate, you wouldn't be able to open it. You wouldn't be able to walk through any of this. The weeds were about waist high, and they were so difficult. Even the mower on my tractor was having difficulty cutting them because they were so thick and just so hardy that it was almost impossible to deal with. And I didn't want to be using any herbicides because that's just not the direction that we want our farm to go in. And so I found that burning has definitely been the best way to go. Even though I really don't like to burn, I do as little of it as possible. This is an example of the weeds, and this isn't even as bad as what they used to be. So I still have lots to clean up here. I still have a few more days of burning season. This is exciting. This is actually my neighbor coming over with his forklift, and he's going to move that little chicken house, which we were using to house our turkeys in over the winter, and he's going to place it here on these paving stones, and that way we can have an extra chicken area close to the barn. It's actually right next to the barn, which is just fantastic. So everything will be close and a little bit easier to take care of. This is what the hen house looks like in its new location, and it's sitting nicely on the pavers, and it's got this cute little wraparound porch. I actually got this from my neighbor. He just moved in not too long ago, and he has no plans of raising chickens, so he very graciously gave us this chicken house, and it was built by the last neighbors that were in the house next door, and I know them quite well, and I know that they built this and they put a lot of time and energy into this, so I'm sure they're glad to know that this is going to be reused. So the nesting boxes here got a little bit damaged on the move, but that's okay. We'll fix them up and we'll get this all ready to go again. So I'm going to be making, I think, a good size pen. This is mainly going to be for breeding, for, letting chicks outside for the first time so that I can free up the stalls in my barn for farrowing pigs. And I think the other side of the fence here, we're going to use the corner of the building and this little post on the porch, and then we're going to run it all the way over to the fence here. So basically what you can see in the shot here, right up to where the pig is standing there, that will be the pen. So I think that's pretty good. I love free-ranging chickens, but there are just certain situations where you do maybe have to put them inside for a short period of time. So we're out at the front of our property now, and we have about 3 acres that we have been trying to grow hay on. And this is now the 3rd season and 3rd planting. And as you can see, the ground is just so dead. It's cracked, it's not great, and we've never really been able to get anything to grow. All we've gotten was maybe some patchy weeds. This ground has been exposed basically for the last 3 years with virtually no cover on it. We've hired people to come and try to get this established for us, but it's just not working. And I'm really inspired by all of the no-till methods, and I would have preferred to not till this at all. However, this was started by the previous owners of this property, and so now I have the responsibility to rehabilitate it and get it back into good healthy soil with a crop on it that we can harvest, but also keep the land healthy and just get it back to being what it once was. So this is just powdery. It's very compact even though it's been tilled. So what we decided to do is experiment with this little strip. What's underneath this mulch is the worst of it. The biggest cracks, weeds were coming in. It was pretty disappointing after all the work that's been put in here to see nothing come of it. So this is kind of like our experimental little patch, and we're hoping that having the ground covered is going to provide nutrients, provide some insulation, to provide some moisture retention, because this was part of the original field here. And grass is coming back naturally. This used to be a pasture in this hole about 2.5 to 3 acres. And now it's this after all of the tilling. So I am totally sold on the no-till methods up to this point, and as you can see, it's just clumpy. There's just nothing here. There's nothing in it. So we are expecting some rain in the next few days, and the mulch should hold some of that rain in the ground and prevent it from drying out again. And we're hoping to see some growth, and if we see some positive results, then hopefully we can just keep going with this and at least get something in here for this year. That's our goal, is to get at least one cut of hay this year. So if any of you have ever encountered this problem and have any tips, then please drop me a comment, because I would love to hear any and all suggestions. I want to say thanks for coming along with me today and letting me show you around, and it's been really great to give everybody kind of a sneak peek on what we're working on here and how we're trying to rehabilitate the ground that we have. So thanks for following along today, and we'll see you next time.